Let's go to Mike Sando of The Athletic, who wrote this. There are going to be one or two teams that do not have anybody going into camp. If you were San Francisco, you might get a first rounder for Jimmy if you just wait until camp, especially if something happens to someone else, one evaluator said. I'll highlight this bottom portion now. An exec said, quote, the Niners getting a one for Jimmy is extremely far-fetched. Clearly, clearing the decks for Trey Lance will be their top priority. But the headline that comes out of that quote is, could the Niners conceivably wait, let Jimmy get healthy, see if somebody else's quarterback gets hurt, and then when a team is in a more desperate situation, get more for Jimmy Garoppolo later? I'd mean holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo now.
I would say under no circumstances can you make this move. It's twofold. One, you need the cash right now. As of recording this, J.C. Jackson might end up with the Chargers. Like it's very aggressive, but people are getting paid left and right, right? You need the capital because starting the new league year Wednesday at whenever it's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 Pacific Standard Time, whatever that is, you have to be like your cap has to be straight. And also to sign a guy, you have to have the appropriate amount of cap space. Like right now it's kind of fake because it's not set in stone. But you're going to need, if you want to pay anybody, you need the cap space. So to get rid of Jimmy adds the $27 million. So if you
new league year is 1 p.m. Wednesday.
If you leave him till training camp, you carry that money. So to me, that doesn't logically make any sense. Actually, it's threefold. Two, you would go into training camp like with just an open competition with Trey Lance. That'd be a little weird. Is Jimmy still your starting quarterback?
No, Trey would be no open competition. Jimmy just over there. You wouldn't even practice Jimmy. Jimmy, I don't want you getting hurt.
Well, that would be a bizarre situation. And then three, you're depending on things that you can't control. Because you'd say best case scenario is once upon a time the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz, but they had Sam Bradford and how he was like, he'll just be the backup. And I think they were telling the truth. And then Teddy Bridgewater in a walkthrough, his knee snapped. And for whatever reason, remember the ambulance was like off-site and it took a minute to get there and it was like a crazy fucking deal. And they were so desperate because they looked at their team being good. They thought they were going to like compete to win 12, 13 games. They traded a one for Sam Bradford. So you'd be hoping that like, it's weird. You'd be hoping someone has a devastating injury. Remember Tony Romo's like shattered his back? Now they ended up having Dak Prescott that year, but you'd be rooting for situations like that to happen. And let's face it, like there's no guarantee that just all of a sudden, just pick a team. A guy just shatters an ankle. What if that doesn't happen and you're just stuck and no one needs him?
But here's the other thing. Let's say that right now you could get whatever you could get for Jimmy, a second, a third, a fourth, whatever it is. And you go, what this person says, let's hold out and maybe we can get a one. Then somebody's quarterback gets hurt. Well, how are you getting a one from them in that situation?
Desperation.
Well, do two people's quarterbacks get hurt?
Well, why did they trade a one for Sam Bradford? Because the Eagles kept telling him he'll just be the starter. So
but that's not happening here. That's not happening.
But you're assuming he's not the starter. Is Kyle just makes him the starter, come into training camp, and Trey's the backup?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'll call your bluff on that one, Niners. I'm not going to trade you a one if I'm the only place you can send Jimmy. You're going to wait longer into the season to see if somebody else's quarterback gets hurt? Because you don't want my two right now? I'm just saying, like you are, like you said, you are, I mean.
You're tempting fate.
You're tempting fate. And it's like, what are you even, it's not a guaranteed upgrade.
Well, I'll tell you in that situation, if it doesn't happen and he just stays, Jimmy Garoppolo ends up the starting quarterback.
100% he does. You're right about that.
So it's the fans' worst nightmare. It's like, Jimmy ends up starting, and they just keep him. And Kyle's like, well, we just, value. We got two good quarterbacks.
Mackin too, when you got a $33 million, 9 plus 7, a $36 million quarterback room.
Yeah, to me, that's a waste of money. Like, part of the reason the Chargers are unloading the clip right now is because of Herbert, right? They have space because Justin Herbert makes whatever he makes, $5-6 million, and Chase Daniels makes nothing. Like, that's their greatest advantage. If they're able to land Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson, it's simply because they have cap space because their quarterbacks cost nothing. If Phillip Rivers was still there or Herbert was in his fifth year on his contract extension, it would be a little difficult. Like, you notice who's not just doing left, like who can't just land Khalil Mack and sign J.C. Jackson? The Bills. You know why? Because their quarterback makes a lot of money. It's like, Andy, he's into J.C. Jackson. Like they had a little moment last year because Mahomes to try to get Trent Williams, but now they're at the point where they don't just have an unlimited cash anymore. Because once you get like a year or two into it, that number just starts hitting you. Even I think Carr and Jimmy are good examples, right? First couple years, you still had some wiggle room with their small cap numbers, but by year 3, 4, it starts. Now it's a smaller number because the cap had gone up, but they're still like their normal number, 25, 27, 22, right? That's just your cap. Like that's just the number. So you got to take advantage. You have to. And the difference is I'm listing guys that like Herbert we know are good. Trey's a major question mark, but the only way from him not to be a question mark, he needs to play, and then you coach his ass up, get him good, and then utilize his space. But you got to utilize the space before he's taking a snap this season because it's right now. Time is now. And I'm not the biggest like you have to splurge in free agency. Like you have a couple targets. If Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Bobby Wagner, whoever, and you be aggressive on them. But if you miss, like I'm cool with like I will not talk shit. Like what have they done? Like just you isolate a couple guys, you be aggressive, and if you can't get them, look at the Chiefs. Like they had a plan last year. Trent Williams, they were all in. They didn't get it, then they just had another plan. Like I'm not gonna freak out if like they don't get J.C. Jackson or Gilmore because it's like you also don't want to be crazy with your cap space. That's where the Rams are actually kind of smart. I actually like being crazier with my picks. Who gives a fuck about a third round pick? You get the guy he's already under contract. When you have to sign the contract, you sign these peak values, right? But if I can trade for a guy, like ultimately I bet Tom Telesco's like, we wouldn't get a player as good as Khalil Mack, and he's under contract for the next couple of years. Now, obviously, he has to stay healthy, but like I have a cost-controlled asset, which is more expensive than the guy I would have drafted in the second round, but he's under contract for the next 3 years. Like that. Yeah. That's where I think the Rams, where I'd like to see the Niners go down that road. Now, there has to be players there, but like,
well, they started to last year with the Trey Lance trade.
Yeah, I'm cooler with doing shit like that.
And they would have done it for Matthew Stafford, and they would have done it for Deshaun Watson. It's the thing. They were going to do those things, right?
But I would, if you would have told me that they made the trade for Khalil Mack, now the Chargers second-round pick's better than their second-round pick, I would have been like, hell yeah. Like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
To me, they should be sniffing around in that market more than like – and that's where I think it gets interesting for Jimmy, right? And I think it gets back to his shoulder, man. I just think teams – it's like, how much are we going to trade for you? Like, this is what we want. Because I think the Niners right now are playing some fucking hardball.
Well, it's a triple whammy, right? It's how much are we going to trade for you? How much are we going to pay you? And how long do we have to wait for you to be healthy? It's three things. Unknowns. Or knowns that are two. Like, so I got to pay you $27 million, or I got to restructure you for like 2 years and $45 million, which even that. Seriously, which is cheap quarterback money relative for starters, right? 2 years, $45 million. Jimmy might be like, I don't want to do 2 years and 45. I'm making 27 just doing nothing.
I'd be like, Jimmy, I'd probably do 2 years, 45.